If Dorothy missed Kansas, what did Toto miss? The rain's down in Africa. Hello, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful day, night, evening, whatever it is. Here we are again for another Kansas Day post because I love my state and I just can't help but at least share some history about it as best of whatever topic as I can. I've been thinking about this one for some time, especially since day one, because my dumb self didn't do anything for December except focus on Christmas video and then said, yeah, nothing else after that. You freaking idiot. It took me a while to think of a certain topic. Characters from Kansas, fictional, or real, actual people, people who made historical events. And then it kind of made me dwindle it down to, hey, what about people in Kansas in general? Those who were born here, of course. Now, I know some people might be kind of asking, what's the point of mentioning about people from Kansas? Well, to give you the idea, because it's a good topic, and also you never know who's born from where. Now, before I do continue, I'm going to talk about 6 people, 3 men, 3 women, and 3 different topics, that being business, military, and acting. I do just want to mention, though, I know that these people are famous, and I know that these people have also given us many things that we should be smiling about, whether it has helped Kansas or at least helped its popularity. Though I will also share real quick, I'm not going to talk about Amelia Earhart, John Brown, Buster Keaton, Michael Stevens from Vsauce, or Jimmy Donaldson, aka, yes, it's Mr. Fecking Beast. I was surprised too. Those people will deserve a video of their own time. Some of those people will deserve a video of their own time. But other than that, though, I just really wanted to see what type of people were born here in Kansas and maybe what they kind of did for their time being, whether it helped the state or not. Which brings me to my second point. When I do bring up these people, I want you to realize that I'm bringing them up mostly as to let people know, like, hey, just because you come from a small town, big town, rural area, these people from Kansas made something happen. And whether it helped Kansas or not is understandable. But at least it has shown throughout history that no matter where you're from, you can do something. But other than that, though, let's get ahead start into what we're doing here, shall we? A co-founder of the Russel Stover Candy Company, Russel Stover himself was born May 6, 1888 in Alton, Kansas. By the way, it was called Bull City in honor of Hiram C. Bull, an American businessman, politician, and military officer who served in the 9th Iowa Volunteer Infantry Regiment during the American Civil War. However, it was later changed to Alton in 1885 after the city of Alton, Illinois, because a female resident didn't like the former name. Don't know why, it just happened. Later down his life, though, he and his family would move into Iowa and spend most of his years there, even graduating with a university degree in chemistry, and, soon after, finding his wife who shared the same entrepreneurial spirit. That's a long, weird word. Soon, the couple would get married and move to Saskatchewan, Canada, because, at that same year of 1911, they were gifted farmland as a wedding gift. A whole big acres that I forgot to write down on my sheet here, that they were planning to grow both wheat and flax, which is the plant that's used for linen. However, sadly, things did not go too well, and later, the couple did move to Winnipeg in 1912. Stover now wanted to be in the candy industry and knew the challenge that was ahead of him. Later working for a Minnesota candy company, then for the A.G. Morris Candy Company in Chicago in 1918, the couple moved to Des Moines. Stover would later work for the Irwin Candy Company, then moving to Omaha, Nebraska, where things would go crazy. In 1921, on July 31st, co-owner Christian Kent Nelson pitched the concept of mass-producing a chocolate-covered ice cream bar, originally called the Ice Cream Bar. What a genius name. Russell, however, suggested to change the name, and it kind of went something like this, I think. I have it, such the genius invention that we can do. Oh, damn, really? I mean, gosh dang, I'm not really against it. What are we going to call this thing? Oh, I have it. The Ice Cream Bar. Nelson, I'm just going to be completely honest and original with you. That name sucks. Oh, yeah? What you got a better name, huh? You got a better name for ice cream? Because, I mean, what do? I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream. That's in the damn sentence right there. Okay, I know. Chill. Don't you dare be using ice cream puns on me. Okay, wasn't even trying to. Look, just hear me out. Eskimo pie. Okay, I like that name better. However, when they did pitch it to the first 7 companies, they all rejected it, saying it easily melted away, even though that's what ice cream is supposed to do. What? Later, it became an instant hit once Nelson and Stover worked together, and once an agreement was signed on the letterhead of the Graham Ice Cream Company. Business was pretty much booming to the point where even such heavy demand, could not be kept up. Even the freaking factories trying to produce these dang things were just going out of business sometimes because they couldn't keep up with how high the demand was for everybody wanting an Eskimo pie. However, though the bars were an instant hit with such high demand, they could not keep up with, sadly, the legal battle over patents. They sadly would lose, and the Stovers decided to sell their share for $25,000. Back at that time, for us now today, that would be about, $405,000. And they later relocated to Denver, Colorado. Imagine trying to go home talking to the wife saying why we gotta move again. In 1923, Clara and Russell began making candy in their home kitchen, selling boxed chocolates under the name Mrs. Stover's Bungalow Candies. Thanks to Clara's passion for perfecting recipes and her business acumen were instrumental in the company's rapid growth. By 1924, the business had expanded to 5 stores, opening a factory in 1928 in Kansas City, Missouri, and later relocated the company's headquarters there in 1931. When the Great Depression did hit, however, they did face some economic challenges, but surprisingly, they managed to keep their chocolate maintained to their signature quality, and Clara overseeing the production as well. In 1934, the companies diversified their offerings by opening a drive-in store, ice cream parlor, and even an ice cream factory in Kansas City. During the 1940s, the name of the company was officially changed to Russel Stover's Candies. Though, by 1954, the company was producing 11 million pounds of candy annually and selling 2,000 department stores across the country. Russell, sadly, however, would pass May 11th, 1954, 5 days after turning 66. Clara would keep operations until 1960, selling it to Lewis Ward for $7.5 million. And then Ward would sell that to another candy company. Though Russell's death was unknown, he was described focusing on his own work than his own health. Russel Stover's candies to this day are still at least a popular hit among chocolate lovers, and I can certainly say it is amazing how a Kansan and also somebody from Iowa were able to at least come together to make such delicious chocolate. No shame to Iowa. I don't know. I was just trying to make that a little funny. Born on September 25th, 1903 in Waverly, Kansas, founded in 1878, named by a pioneer settler for his hometown of Waverly, Indiana, Olive Ann was born to Frank and Susanna, Frank being a contractor and Susanna, who basically raised pigs, geese, chickens, and cows. At a young age, her and her family moved to Paola, Kansas, where she attended school. Her mother being the dominant figure in the house with putting all the family properties in her name, as were most decisions ensured financially early on. At the age of 7, she had her own bank account, and at 11, she was actually in charge of writing checks to pay the family bills. In 1917, the family moved to Wichita, Kansas, however, where Olive Ann would skip attending high school. She would later, though, however, sign up and attend business courses at the American Secretarial and Business College. At 17 to 18, she left Wichita for Augusta, Kansas, for a job at an electrical contracting firm, where she didn't really do too bad so far. Even outside of work, however, Olive Ann was determined to get ahead, talking to a bank teller for a $1,000 loan, and only returning weeks later repaying the loan and earning a credit rating. In 1925, Olive Ann was hired by Clyde Cessna and took a job as a bookkeeping secretary for a new aircraft company called Traveled Air. What a unique name. It was pretty good at that time. And after learning the business, handling correspondence, keeping records, and conducting transactions, she was promoted to office manager/secretary to Walter Beech. I think you can start to see where the name is about to be. Sometime later, Travel Air would merge with the Curtis Wright Corporation in August 1929. Walter later assumed presidency of the company and moved to New York City. And on February 24th, 1930, Olive and Walter would would be married in Wichita, and she would soon move to follow Walter to New York. Before the marriage, though, in 29, she played a vital behind-the-scenes role when the speedy Travel Air mystery ship won the first Thompson Trophy race, becoming the first civilian plane to defeat the fastest military fighters in open competition, which is very impressive to do, especially with military folk. In 1932, Walter, however, decides to quit the Curtiss-Wright Company, and both he and Olive and a few others started the Beech Aircraft Company, leaving New York and to move back and build in Wichita, where the whole aerial stuff was actually a lot more bigger at that time, especially before and during World War II. In 1937, Beech Aircraft introduced the Twin Beech, Beechcraft model number 18, which was adopted for use by the U.S. Army Air Corps, and later sold all over the world. However, not doing great during the Great Depression, however. Though, by 1940, Olive would later run the company when Walter was ill with a brain inflammation. I sadly cannot pronounce the word. Here's what it was. He remained in a coma for such a time being. Though, at the same time as Walter was in a coma, she was in the same hospital, delivering their second child at that time. Olive was reported to work 10 to 12 hours a day. Her temporary change did little to slow her down, staying in the hospital where she delivered her child and ignoring men who thought the aircraft industry was no place for a woman, because God forbid a woman could do something in the 1940s. Halfway through 1940, commercial production was suspended at the time, and models 17 and 18 were under military use heavily, using this moment to help both her company and country, arranging for $83 million in loans for the expansion for production of the Twin Beech and Staggerwing models. Beech Aircraft would make more than 7,400 aircrafts, and during the Second World War, though being used to train navigators and bombarders, Beech Aircraft was awarded 5 Army-Navy E awards. Though Walter was much later able to recover and run the company again, it wasn't until November 29, 1950, where he would sadly die of a heart attack. Olive Ann would later assume leadership, causing her to be the first woman to head a major aircraft company. Though with this passing was also the trouble returning to commercial production, however, because with the war coming to an end, she would find ways to continue running the company and trying to make sure that sales were going well. All the other while, however, other men thinking a woman wasn't fit for business for the aircraft industry, let alone running it as well once again. You just imagine just kind of sitting there, just like those random guys going like, get that woman out of my boss chair. I want to turn. No, I want to turn. No, I want to turn. Nobody's getting a turn. It wasn't until 56 that the Beechcraft Travel Air was made, later having other companies like NASA help with the development for space exploration, surprisingly. With models like Beechcraft Queen Air, Debonair, Baron, and King Air to be used successfully for cabin pressurization equipment used in the Gemini series of spacecraft, which is still surprising to say either way. Only later in 68 would Olive take a step back as president and CEO, giving more power to her nephew, Frank Hendrick. She still kept the role of chairman of the board and chief executive officer, however, even at the age of 65, keeping up with financial orders and such. By 1980, Olive had been awarded the Wright Brothers Memorial Trophy, the highest honor that the aviation fraternity bestows for contributions to the aviation industry. She would also be inducted into the American National Business Hall of Fame in 83, and first contemporary inductee in the Kansas Business Hall of Fame in 86. She would also be later inducted into the National Aviation Hall of Fame. Sadly, I didn't write that down of what year that was. She would retire much later, continuing to oversee her personal investments and contributions to various civic and philanthropic projects. She was a key supporter in the Wichita Art Association, her church, First United Methodist Church, if you're that curious, and Seroptimus International of Wichita. Beech would pass in her sleep at her own home on July 6, 1993, leaving a legacy of aviational and financial achievements right behind her as well. Sergeant Ronald Lee Ermey, nicknamed Gunny, was part of the United States Marine Corps, almost joining the Navy, whose units were the India Company, 3rd Recruit Training Battalion, and the Marine Wing Support Group, number 17. Having 11 years of service, and whose only conflict was in Vietnam, he later spent many of his years spent appearing in over 100 films and TV shows that he acted in both physically and vocally. But I'm only here, of course, to discuss about his military career on this one. Though I won't lie, he was almost a candidate for the acting one. Ronald was born in Emporia, Kansas on March 24, 1944. A few years after his birth, his father would move the family to a small farm outside Kansas City, Kansas. Then, in '58, when Ermey was just 14 years old, his father moved them again to a rural home between Zillah and Granger, Washington. As a teenager, Ermey was admitted to being a troublemaker and a bit of a hellraiser, and frequently got himself into trouble. In '61, when he was only 17, his mother took him to a judge in an attempt to correct his behavior. The judge gave Ermey only two options, and I quote, military service or jail. Ermey, without any hesitation, chose military service over jail time. I'd be 50-50 in that route, but then again, I'm also autistic, so I don't know if they would put me in either. I'm kidding about that joke. Ronald enlisted in the United States Marine Corps at 17 in 1961 and went through his recruitment training at the Marine Corps Unit Depot in San Diego, California. Yeah, I know, that's more obvious than it should be. Serving in the aviational support field for a few years before becoming a drill instructor, surprisingly, in India Company 3rd Recruit Training Battalion at the same Marine Corps that he was assigned from. Assigned from there as well from 1965 to 1967. Ermey was also a rifleman and a repair shop mechanic during his time of the Corps, meaning that he knew how to fix a car and shoot something at the same time. God bless America. In 1968, he served 14 months in Vietnam, attached to Marine Wing Support Group No. 17. His remaining service was on Okinawa, where he advanced to staff sergeant, and later retiring in '72 for several injuries. Sadly, I wish I could tell you the injuries, but I couldn't find them anywhere. That, or I'm just very dumb not knowing where to find them. I did use Google, though, so that probably didn't help. And was later honorably promoted to gunnery sergeant by commandment of the Marine Corps General James L. Jones. Even after retirement and acting, he regularly took opportunities to speak with new recruits, visiting his old recruit depot, and also one in the Paris Island. Sadly, he would pass on April 15, 2018 to pneumonia, where he was only 74 years old. That was actually quite sad, too, when I did learn about his death. I was kind of hoping more natural causes when his time came. Ronald Lee Ermey had the awards and decorations as followed, and I do apologize if I mispronounce any of these. Row 1. Meritorious Unit Commendation. Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal with 2 Bronze Service Stars. National Defense Service Medal. Row 2. Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal. Vietnam Service Medal with 1 Bronze Campaign Star. Marine Corps Drill Instructor Ribbon. Row 3. Republic of Vietnam Gallantry Cross with Palm. Vietnam Presidential Unit Citation. Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal. Badges. Rifle Marksmanship Badge, Pistol Sharpshooter Badge, and 2 service stripes. Brigadier General Elizabeth P. Hoisington, who was part of the United States Army, was one of the first 2 women to attain the rank of Brigadier General, who also held 29 years of service to our country, only having fought in World War II and some service during Vietnam. Elizabeth was born in Newton, Kansas, named after Newton, Massachusetts, home of some of the Santa Fe stockholders. She was born on November 3rd, 1918. Where she comes from a family of service members. Her grandfather, Colonel Perry Milo Hoisington I, helped to organize the Kansas National Guard. Her father, Gregory Hoisington, another colonel, and her brother, Perry Hoisington II, a United States Air Force general and major general. Not much has really been recorded about her early life, except only in 1940 where she graduated the College of Notre Dame in Maryland. Which I'm going to guess either A, she really wanted to get out of Kansas for some time, or B, Maryland just had good education, I don't know. In World War II, the U.S. Army expanded opportunities for women beyond nursing, creating the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, or better known as the WAAC. Come November 1942, Hoisington enlisted and completed her basic training in all the same year at Fort Des Moines, Iowa. At the time, women were required to serve in units before they could apply to officer candidate school. So, Private Hoisington at the time went to a WAAC aircraft early warning unit in Bangor, Maine. The company commander recognized her talents and made her the first sergeant soon of her arrival. Her method to get there was to find and learn from the most grizzled male first sergeant to teach her all that she needs to know. And by the time that she did get to learn and doing such a good job, when she reached OCS, she never had to even open a book. In May 1943, Hoisington was commissioned as a WAAC third officer. A month later, when the auxiliary became the Women's Army Corps, WAC, its officers changed to standard Army ranks. Hoisington now became a second lieutenant. She deployed to Europe and France one day after D-Day, later continuing her career after World War II. She commanded WAC units in Japan, Germany, and also France, also serving in staff regiments in San Francisco and the Pentagon. There's a Madonna's in the Pentagon. I know that's not the melody. Don't hate me. On August 1st, 1965, Hoisington was appointed the 7th director of the WAC. She served from 1966 to 1971. As a director during the Vietnam War, she visited WACs serving in Saigon and Long Binh in September 1967. Some sources say Hoisington discouraged sending in Army women to Vietnam. She believed the controversy would deter progress in expanding the overall role of women in the Army. Then, on May 15, 1970, President Nixon announced the first woman selected for promotion to Brigadier General. Ann May Hayes, who helped pave the way for equal treatment of women, countered occupational sexism, and made a number of recommendations, which were later accepted into military policy. Chief of the Army Nurse Corps, Ann Elizabeth P. Hoisington. The two women were promoted on June 11th, and only minutes apart from one another due to the fact they did it by alphabetical order. The promotion of both first female brigadier generals resulted positive in public relations for the Army, including appearances on the Dick Cavett, David Frost, and Today's shows. Hoisington, who was noted for a quick smile and a lubid personality, also appeared as a mystery guest on the popular game show What's My Line? After some time, she would retire from the Army on August 1st, 1971. She would live peacefully until August 21st, 2007 in Springfield, Virginia, where she would pass, sadly, of congestive heart failure, where she survived by a younger brother named Robert and sister Nancy. She was only 88 years old. I now read the decorations as followed to Elizabeth P. Hoisington. Row 1. Army Distinguished Service Medal. Legion of Merit with Oak Leaf Cluster. Row 2. Bronze Star Medal. Army Commendation Medal. Women's Army Corps Service Medal. Row 3. American Campaign Medal. European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with 1 Service Star. World War II Victory Medal. In row 4, Army of Occupation Medal. National Defense Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster. Croix de Guerre, 1939 to 1945, France, with star. I apologize to whoever I offend, although it's French. What do you expect? Okay, I speak English. The voice of Goofy, Pluto, and Horace Horsecollar was born on November 14th, 1952, in Pratt, Kansas, named after Caleb S. Pratt, a young Civil War officer from the Kansas Infantry killed in action in the Battle of Wilson's Creek near Springfield, Missouri. Being the second child in his family, Bill Farmer began doing voices at just the age of 10, mostly doing impressions, even of Western stars like John Wayne and Walter Brennan. He and his friends would sometimes even go through fast food drive-thrus and order in his character voices. Which, granted, sometimes I get tempted to do that, but then again, I don't want to ruin some people's day. Farmer would graduate from KU in 1975, where he became a member of the Sigma Chi fraternity. In university, Bill found work in TV and radio, and then moved to stand-up comedy as an impressionist. In '82, while doing stand-up, Bill worked at the comedy club called the Comedy Corner in Dallas, Texas. He continued working there until moving to Hollywood in 1986. His decision mostly to move to California came from a Dallas commercial agent, given his talent for voices, to try his luck in California. However, though, at the time he was recently married and he and his wife had to discuss about this type of decision. Thankfully, coming to an arrangement of her staying in Dallas while he commuted for a year after getting an apartment over in Hollywood. After 4 months moving out to Hollywood, his agent then called and asked him one question. Can you do any Disney characters? Now, though Bill did love doing voices and he didn't mind acting, Bill asserts that voice acting wasn't about funny voices, but mostly about acting. Thankfully, his mentor was the versatile voice actor Daws Butler, the man behind many of Hanna-Barbera's characters, such as Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and Quick Draw McGraw, just to name a few. He would teach Bill that when doing cartoon voices, a person isn't merely doing a funny voice, but an actor, and the acting is premier, and that one has to think like the character one is performing. Which is honestly a good key point. Seriously, if you get into voice acting, know that. Upon his move, he got a call for an open audition for Disney's Goofy. When he auditioned, he actually studied the original voice actor, Pinto. I do apologize for mispronouncing that name if I did. I would just like to state there have been various other voice actors throughout Goofy's years, which I do want to apologize. I forgot to mention that in my notes, but I also would like to say, if you want to know more, here's this YouTube video. I would highly recommend to know Goofy's voice actors throughout the years. Aside from that, I just would also like to state, I'm going to show some clips between Pinto and Bill. I do not own any of these. Obviously, they belong to Disney, but under laws, I am at least allowed to show these as examples. Other than that, these are only shown as examples. I don't belong these. I don't own these. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my words today.
I ain't as scared of no ghosts.
Can you say hello to us, Goofy?
Gosh, howdy everybody, this is your old pal Goofy coming to you from B23.
Okay, Donald. Gosh, steam's low.
Here he is. This guy's about as old as me, and he's still looking pretty good.
It's a darn good thing you ain't real. 'Cause if you was, I'd get the drop on you. And drill you right between the eyes.
Donald, in my experience, the best photos are the ones that aren't all staged and pretty. Like this photo of me and Maxie on a roller coaster. I was terrified and almost lost my lunch.
Performing as Goofy in the classic cartoons, which if any of you thought, Bill did the voice in the 50s and 40s. Nope, that was somebody else. But damn, did he do a great job doing the impersonation of him. Studying the hilarious laughs and distinctive gosh. After his audition, he inherited the voice of Goofy in January 1987, and then Pluto in 1990. And it was only till then would Bill's career soar to the world of both acting and voice acting, doing such great things, and actually even winning some awards. Granted, some of them mostly being Disney-themed, such as getting an award in 2009 as a Disney Legend for the animation category of voice, or 2 in 2015 for Best Vocal Ensemble in a new television series, and Outstanding Achievement in Voice Acting in an animated TV/broadcast production, and even one more in 2016 for Best Vocal Ensemble in a new television series. If anything, I can say that I still am happy that I do love the voice of Goofy. But now knowing much more about Bill, I'm actually much more in love with Goofy's voice actor. Maybe one day I'll be lucky enough. But hey, who knows if I'm going to be that lucky. Lois Arlene Smith, once Humbert, was born on November 3rd, 1930 in Topeka, Kansas, whose acting career spans 8 decades. She's still alive, by the way, at the time of this recording. She was the youngest of 6 children and the daughter of Carrie and William Humbert, mostly William, who worked for a telephone company. At age 11, her father would move the family to Seattle. He was heavily involved in the church, staging plays there in which young Lois performed. She studied theater at the University of Washington, but didn't graduate for some odd reason that I could not find. At 18 years old, she would marry Wesley Dale Smith, where you can get the name of Lois Smith, whom she met in college, and later they had a child named Moon Elizabeth Smith. Around 1951, Smith and her husband decided to leave Seattle, moving to New York City to begin their professional careers. After working with Elia Kazan on East of Eden, he encouraged her to study with Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio, in which she did. She also was mentored by John Van Druten in her early years in New York City. It wasn't until 1970 that she and Wesley would divorce and focus on her own career. Now, before we continue, I would love to show you all the work she has done, or at least the most popular ones that I could find. But as I was doing more research, I started to realize she has an 8-decade acting career. As much as I would love to show, I also don't really know what stuff to capture if I can, or what stuff I could find. So, I'm just going to show everything she's done when it came to theater, Broadway, all that stuff, and the awards that she has won. I just hope everybody understands. I do apologize greatly. I would love to show her works. I just didn't realize how much work she has done, and I take fault on that entirely. I do at least hope me sharing this has helped in some way. Again, granted, like I also stated, you could go to the Wikipedia page if you want to. I just hope that me showing this is okay. And again, I am gratefully sorry. I should have taken more time. Sadly, I am under a time limit, so there was only so much I could do. Well, that was quite informative, and I'm actually very much happy to at least get through these 6 people. I know that maybe it probably would have been better to probably focus on one, but I just couldn't help myself. The list that I saw on Wikipedia was just so good that I had to at least choose some folks, and I'm quite happy with those that I chose. If you think of any other person that you would like to know about, well, I say give a chance to read about them yourselves or try to ask me. Who knows? Maybe next year or somewhere during the time of me still being on here, maybe I'll give it a shot and give out more history of some folks. But other than that, though, I just want to say thank you, Smoothskins, for sticking around, listening to me ramble and give out some history on Kansas Day, the best day ever. And I just hope you all got to enjoy what you were listening to. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you got to enjoy everything that you pretty much love to hear about, or at least if you enjoyed the video and or the history. I gotta get going now and enjoy the rest of my day here in Kansas. But I'll catch you Smoothskins on the flip side. Remember to stay safe now, and I'll catch you all later. Bye!